Go. I'm Chris Monteith. I'm Acting Chief of the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau, and I want to welcome you to today's program in honor of Older Americans Month. I just sent an email to some of my colleagues saying none of us in the room really qualify as older Americans, but I'm sure there'll be lots of very good and useful information passed on by our panelists today. Each year in May, we celebrate Older Americans Month to recognize older Americans for their contributions and provide them with information to help them stay healthy and active. Older Americans Month was established in 1963. President John F. Kennedy's meeting that year with the National Council of Senior Citizens served as a prelude to designating May as Senior Citizens Month. In 1980, President Jimmy Carter changed the designation to what we now know as Older Americans Month. The national theme of this year's Older Americans Month celebration is Safe Today, Healthy Tomorrow. In keeping with this year's theme, today's program by the FCC is entitled Stay Safe, Stay Healthy, Stay Connected. Just a few statistics. In April of 2014, Pew Research Center updated several key findings regarding seniors, illustrating how they are using the internet more than ever before. However, 41% of older Americans still do not use the internet at all. 53% do not have broadband access at home, and 23% do not use cell phones. Today, 46% of online seniors, representing 27% of the total older adult population, use social networking sites such as Facebook, maintaining social connections with the people about whom they care. This is significant in preventing social isolation, as well as empowering older Americans to better manage their lives through online banking, accessing records management and telehealth opportunities, conducting research, and facilitating civic engagement. Increasingly, as we all know, everything is online, and just to live and navigate in today's world, you really need to be online. So contrary to popular assumption, technology is not a young person's thing. Overall, studies prove that those of us who keep up our connections, including our online connections, enjoy a fuller and longer life. An overwhelming majority, 81% of older Americans who use social networking sites say they socialize with others on a daily or near daily basis. With these and other statistics in mind, we reached out to experts from several agencies and private sector groups and have asked them here today to talk with us about their experiences in working with seniors in the digital age. I would like to welcome our presenters and thank them for taking the time out of their busy schedules to be with us today. We have with us Jeff Goldthorpe, Associate Bureau Chief of our Public Safety and Homeland Security Bureau. Representing FEMA, we have Karen Coates, Everett Sedgwick, and Susan Johnson-Sellers. Jim Tobias joins us from Global Public Inclusive Infrastructure. Robert Jaron from Qualcomm. Susan Haight, President of the Foggy Bottom West End Village. Simone Myrie from the Office of National Coordinator for Health. Dr. Karen Ruban from University of Virginia. Tom Camber from Older Adults Technology Services. Dr. Thomas Klobuchar from the Veterans Administration. And Sheila Dugan from Everyone On. And thank you so much to our panelists. We really appreciate you taking the time. I know it does disrupt your schedules and the other things that you have going on in your busy lives, but we really do appreciate it. And thank you for sharing. For the folks here at the FCC and those who are also watching our webcast, I think as Roger may have mentioned to some of you too, we're videotaping today's session and we'll use this to push it out to others who aren't able to join us in person or on our webcast. So thank you very much. So Jeff, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Chris. And
I don't want to interrupt, but Chris, for people who are watching online, if they have questions.
Oh, yes, excuse me. Thankfully, Roger is here to remind me of those things that I forget. It's happening increasingly these days. I need to sit in the audience, and I will sit in the audience and listen to you impart your wisdom on how to stay healthy and safe and connected. Questions from webcast folks can be sent to livequestions@fcc.gov. Thanks again.
Thanks, Roger. I also want to thank our panelists and also folks that have joined us here in the room, as well as those that are joining online. The way we'll do this today, I'm going to spend a little bit of time right now talking about cybersecurity and how you can protect yourself online, regardless of whether you're, regardless of who you are. A lot of the rules are the same. And then the other speakers on the panel will go for about 10 minutes each. And then we'll have some time for questions and answers. Now, one of the first things that might come to your mind about internet security is what makes the internet so different? Why do you hear so much about cybersecurity? And it's worth spending a minute to bring you some context on what makes the internet different and why is security an issue there. Let's talk about communications the way it has been for most of our lives. And that I'm thinking now back to the days when we picked up the phone and got dial tone. I remember those days. I don't have that anymore. I don't have a phone that you pick up and get dial tone, and many of us don't. But back in those days, the networks that we used, and many of us continue to use, were proprietary networks, and the communications were controlled in a different way. They were controlled in a much tighter way. So when you pick up the phone and got dial tone, you were communicating with a node in the network that was secure. And the only way that you could connect with another person on the network was to dial their number. And the nature of the communications was voice communications. So you had a pretty good idea if you were really talking to the person that you thought you were talking to. It was a little bit harder to commit fraud and sort of voice fraud. It's not impossible. It happens. But it's harder. And so because of the proprietary and tighter controlled networks that have existed for years, these sorts of fraudulent activities that we hear about in cyberspace were not perpetuated as widely. Now, and I've mentioned this already, but I'll mention it again, is another thing about communications as we've known it is communications between humans, by and large. That's not completely true, but it's mostly true, or it had been mostly true. And when you're talking to people, you're less likely to be subject to fraud and abuse when you're using the communications networks. Now, let's talk about the internet and how the internet is different. The original design of the internet was designed not to have any kind of intermediary between you and the network, the user and the network. So when you touch the internet, you're touching everybody else that's touching the internet, and everybody else that's touching the internet is touching you. That's not true in communications as we've known it for years. And it raises the level of risk that folks encounter when they use communications networks that are internet-based. And I'm very specific in saying internet we hear use of this term sort of packet or IP-based. That's a little bit different, and I don't want to get into that. It's sort of a detail that isn't worth pursuing here, but we're really talking about the internet right now. These open protocol networks that allow people to interconnect with everybody else in the world over open networks. And now the other thing, in addition to the increased risk that comes with being able to communicate instantaneously with everybody anywhere, we have the fact that the internet tends to be used for machine-to-machine or computer-based communications. And it's a lot easier for malicious activities to be conducted when the communications are taking place strictly with computers. Think about a situation where somebody calls you on the phone and tries to commit fraud over the phone, says that they're going to take somebody hostage or do something. That's one thing. Over the internet, when many, many people now are starting to use the internet for their banking and for purchasing and so forth, when their accounts are linked to their computer and they're used over the internet, that creates an increased level of risk. So I'm using this word risk, and I'm using it deliberately, because just because there's a higher risk in conducting these sorts of transactions over the internet, I'm not trying to scare you away from using the internet. I'm just trying to make you aware that these things are true, and I'm trying to encourage you to take certain measures to protect yourself, to minimize your risk. And there are things you can do. In fact, there's some very, very simple things you can do. And if everybody did a few things, the kinds of cybersecurity incidents that we hear about would go down dramatically. So what are some of those things? First of all, sometimes when you get an email, you get an email with a link in it, and it's tempting to click on the link. You shouldn't do that, okay? That's not a good idea. A lot of these things that you may know already, and that would be great if I found out everything that I'm going to tell you today you already knew. That would be wonderful, because that just means that the message is getting out there and folks are becoming more and more aware of these things. But it wasn't too long ago where when you get an email with a link in it, people would click on it without thinking about it. Not all of them, but what many of those links are they will take you to a website that's in some way infected. And when you reach that website, your computer can become infected. That's one of the things about the internet that's different, is that since it is such an open network and you're talking or touching everybody, it's almost like you're walking around in a room full of people, many of which are infected with the flu. And just by walking around out there, you can get it if you're not careful, if you don't take certain steps to sort of reduce the likelihood that you'll become infected. So that's one thing you can do. Just don't click on links. When you get a pop-up on your computer, even a pop-up that says it's going to do something that looks good, like your computer's infected, and you need to click here to disinfect your computer, that's almost always a bad thing to do. Those are things that you almost always shouldn't do. You can never say always, right? But this is just general principles that it's usually not a good idea. Usually your computer, your operating system or your browser will have features that you can set that will block pop-ups. If you don't want to see them, you can block them. Now that requires you to have to get into the browser and manipulate some of the features, the security features in the browser or the operating system. But that is something you can do. It's not one of the simpler things you can do. A simple thing you can do is to have passwords that are both not easy to recognize. Don't have a password that's your spouse's name, right? That's a bad password. And change your password periodically. Change your passwords periodically. If you're like me, you've got passwords at a bunch of different places, different accounts that you use, and it's complicated. It's frustrating, I know. But it's better to have complicated passwords at each of these sites that you just change periodically. Change them periodically. That's really important, because if your passwords are just left there unchanged, you're just sort of asking for a time when somebody's going to hack into your account, or that's what could happen. Somebody could hack into your account and take advantage of the vulnerability. Now, you should, in your home, if you're using wireless networks in your home, or a wireless network in your home, Wi-Fi network, you should set the security on that. Most of those routers come with security set, so you can't run them open. It used to be that they would come with security unset, and so that they were just wide open. It used to be sort of like like a potted plant theory, like everybody would have a Wi-Fi router so that everybody else could use it, and that was a sort of a glorious age when the internet was completely trusted. Well, we're past that, and communications providers are now are rolling out routers that are secured. Let me say a couple more things, and then I'm going to wrap up. Second last thing I'll say is your internet service provider, the intermediary between you and the internet, over the last 5 years or so, has very likely offered a lot of services that you can take advantage of to reduce the risk that you face when you go online. So I encourage you to go back when you go back to your homes. Check what your internet service provider offers. It may very well be free. It may come at no cost to you. You just have to opt into it. And if your ISP is offering it, it's probably good. And finally, 2 websites that you should check they're good. One is a government website. It's www.stopthinkconnect, all one word, .gov. That's a good one. Another one is www.staysafeonline, all one word, .org. Both those websites are very understandable, very good, very useful information that will help you to manage your risk when you use the internet. So I'm about a minute over, but I'm going to end here, and thank you for your time. I'm going to turn it over now to Everett and to Susan. Is that how? Karen. Oh, I'm sorry, Karen. I have it a little different on here.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to talk a little bit about the FEMA and AARP relationship. I have just a very short time because I'm sharing that time with my 2 colleagues. But I wanted to say, first of all, that FEMA works with a wide variety of groups to get out emergency preparedness messaging, and AARP is one such group where we get out messaging to the older adult population. AARP joins FEMA as a force multiplier to provide benefits for the older adult population. Last year, AARP and FEMA entered into a partnership. Now, why is this partnership so important? Because both organizations have a mutual interest in keeping older adults safe before, during, and after emergencies or disasters. And because older adults now have the opportunity to get information from yet another source, AARP has more than 37 million members, so the disaster preparedness, emergency preparedness message has a wide reach. And we're all interested in giving life-saving information about keeping people safe and preparing for disasters. FEMA and AARP can also collaborate on messages of safety, fraud, and how to register for disaster assistance. AARP's communication channels, their social media channels, are quite extensive, and as are FEMA's. The likelihood that you and your family will recover from an emergency often depends on the degree of pre-planning and the preparation that you take. So AARP and FEMA have joined forces to bring information that will fit your needs, your individual situation, to help you to prepare to keep you and your loved ones safe. So AARP and FEMA, I should forward the slide, sorry. Encourage participation in activities that will prepare people for all different types of hazards that could strike in your area, how to prepare and what to do should that disaster strike. AARP has toolkits on a Create the Good website that is dedicated for volunteer activities. They also have toolkits for hosting community events to prepare communities on what to do should a disaster hit their area. FEMA hosts the ready.gov website, ready.gov website, which prepares awareness information for all types of emergencies, for all types of audiences, including older adults. And the America's Prepare-a-thon website takes people from awareness to action, encouraging people to take part in events on 2 national days of action, one in the fall and one in the spring, where they actually attend events and learn what to do in a disaster that could happen in their area. The local FEMA and AARP offices can and do join forces to get information to disaster survivors. And we've seen this in Colorado for the flooding and also in Oklahoma for a year ago in the aftermath of tornadoes. And when a disaster strikes, FEMA connects affected AARP state offices. They have one office in every state, with their local volunteer agency active in disaster and also their state emergency managers. Now, why is this important? Because AARP gets the most up-to-date information on what is going on in their area pertaining to the disaster, and they can get that information out to their membership. So it's a really vibrant, good partnership that works together. And in Oklahoma, one of the examples is right after the Oklahoma tornadoes, AARP connected with their state VOADs. They immediately participated in the conference calls and donations and volunteer committee calls. So AARP has a large network of volunteers who are experienced. They're experienced in helping their communities get back on their feet after disasters. They provide support and resources in all of the disaster phases. So I just wanted to call your attention again to the websites, the ready.gov for preparedness information. It's ready.gov/seniors, and the other website is ready.gov/prepare for the America's Prepare-a-thon information, and aarp.org. Thank you, and I will now turn this over to Everett Sedgwick.
Hello, thanks for having us here. I'm Everett Sedgwick. I'm with FEMA's Office of Disability Integration and Coordination. I want to say hello to Cheryl King out there. I spent so much time with Cheryl, and thank you, FCC, for allowing her to respond along with FEMA to Hurricane Sandy. She spent about 4 months with me and with FEMA, but I felt like with me, with our Disability Advisor's Office and actually moving over into recovery. She just did so much work that was so good at Hurricane Sandy in New Jersey. So thank you. I'm here standing in for Gay Jones, who is our expert on communications and alternative formats and technology, assistive technology. But she is doing her real work. She's out in Alabama right now with the severe weather and disaster that's out there. And what she's doing now is making sure that what we're talking about here is happening on the ground. And so she's making sure that the physical, programmatic, and effective communication access is there for people with disabilities and access and functional needs. FEMA, I guess I'm supposed to be turning something here, but there it is. The Office of Disability Integration and Coordination encourages emergency management practices throughout every step of the disaster cycle to include people with disabilities and others with access and functional needs. ODIC provides guidance, tools, strategies that integrate and coordinate emergency management practices with emergency managers, planners, disability community leaders, and whole community. Relying on my notes, sorry. But in disaster response and recovery, we provide expertise to disaster-impacted states on strategies to meet life-saving and life-sustaining needs. And some of those things are the early warning, communication access, evacuation, health maintenance, and transportation needs. We assess sites for FEMA buildings and disaster recovery centers, and that's the one-stop shop. That's the place where people go to get information and to apply for the services. And what we do there is to make sure that the places that people go are accessible in every way. And that's a must for us, is to make sure that people do have access to all the things that FEMA and the other agencies provide during a disaster. People with disabilities and the laws that protect them also help all the rest of us out. And as you mentioned that not many of us up here were seniors, but I am. I've been around for a little bit, and I know how helpful a lot of the different things are that we have now in place based on the protections for people with disabilities. You go into a supermarket, and the doors open automatically for you now. There's a cart that's motorized that are for people, that's set up there for people with disabilities, but others that may have trouble in maneuvering and getting through the aisles. Now those are in place in most of your supermarkets. The aisles are wider. Curb cuts that you hear about all the time that are actually ADA standard, that for people to be able to get up and down the curbs. How many of us don't use those? How many of us don't take advantage of that? And things that FEMA's doing with our accessible communications, and all the DRCs now. There's 175 kits so if we open up 175 DRCs, the disaster response centers, there's kits there to help people that have low vision or blind. There's information and there's equipment that helps people that are deaf and hard of hearing. I've gone into DRCs, and the staff members that are in there working were wanting to use some of the equipment themselves, because in the noise and all the scatter and the things going on in a busy DRC, they were having trouble communicating and hearing what was being said to them. And so on the other side of it, how important it is that people have that information, have that equipment available, whether it be an amplification system, or whether it be large print, or whether it be the different things that we have now that we do offer. And it's a must when we open up our DRCs and we open up anything that we have for the public, that everything is available for the whole community. And so the result of all these different laws actually benefit some of us older citizens too that need that. And that goes along to the push now for accessible cots, making them universal, so that it's not just for people with disabilities, but now there's cots in new shelters that are more and more. FEMA is making sure that all the old ones that are going out are being replaced with accessible cots, because some of us older folks have trouble getting off those low-sitting ones that the military used to use. And so altogether, I think FEMA is working very diligently to make sure that in every way that we can, we're making things accessible for the whole community. Thank you for.
Good morning. I'm Susan Johnson Sellers, and I am from the FEMA Integrated Public Alert and Warning System Office. Our office works with local, state, territorial, and tribal and federal alerting agencies. What we do is we try to get them, and we've been doing a very good job, we get them to adopt our system for alerting the American public, and we've been working very, very hard. We allow them to use it as a secondary means to the software that they currently have. So there's various channels that we use for alerting. We have radio, TV. NOAA Weather Service have been around with us since June 2012. And and also WEAS. WEAS is a new system that we've been working on. WEAS are wireless emergency alerts, and we are very serious about this right now. And we would like to for all citizens to know that wireless emergency alerts are free. They come to your cell phone. Most carriers are now using wireless emergency alerts, and some phones don't have them at the time, but most phones are coming opted in. Wireless emergency alerts come and they look like text messages on your cell phone. I'm sure that sometime or another you've gotten an alert and you said, "What is this?" Well, this is our system that is integrating with other people's software to alert the American citizens. We have an online training course that is free to the public, and you'll also get a little certificate once you complete it. This is really, really cool. I like it. Wiz can save your life, and our motto is get alert, stay alive.
Here's to the things that can keep us safe. Those we use all the time with hardly a thought. Those that are silently standing by to save our lives. And now, those that we carry with us everywhere we go. Many mobile devices will now bring you wireless emergency alerts, real-time information directly from local sources you know and trust. With the unique sound and vibration, you'll be in the know wherever you are.
We woke up to an alarm at 10:51 from National Weather Service.
Washington, Illinois resident Megan Apple didn't take the first alert she received on her phone seriously, but just a few minutes later came the second.
10:58, and it said, "Tornado warning, take shelter now." We hid in our closet and took a shelter away from any windows. And it was all the scariest experience I've ever had.
That storm was moving at 60, 70 miles an hour, like that Washington tornado. Every second counts. And one of the things that they do with those emergency alerts is they do that based on your GPS location. So if you happen to not be in Washington, Illinois, you would not have gotten that warning.
Those that were got the instant information, and that gave them the opportunity to get to a safe place until the threat passed. But it's important to remember to take action quickly. For Apple, her cell phone is one of the only things she has left after the tornado ripped through her town, but it may have saved her from losing much more.
This tornado ripped through the area. You can see there's a lot of damage behind me. There were actually kids playing inside the dome when that tornado touched down. But then the director of the camp here got an alert on her phone urging people in the area to take cover.
I had the weather alert on my phone, and about within 10 seconds the heavy rain started. The dome, I turned around and the dome just was gone. It was an incredible noise. Luckily all campers are safe, counselors are safe, and we were okay.
Wireless emergency alerts can only be triggered by a select list of authorized government originators like the National Weather Service. After the Boston Marathon bombing, officials there issued wireless alerts to warn residents to shelter in place.
Back home in the U.S. tonight to the Pacific Northwest, where the weather has emerged as a big issue in the lives of millions of people, many of whom are being urged to stay home until a major ice storm in the region blows over. NBC's Joe Fryer is in Portland, Oregon tonight with more on this story. Joe, good evening.
Yeah, go ahead. So disruptive is the winter storm that's blasting the Pacific Northwest. Early this morning, the city of Portland sent its first ever wireless emergency alert to cell phones, urging all residents to stay indoors today and not travel due to ice. Many Oregon drivers have abandoned their cars on idle highways, roads so bad at least 2 mothers had no other choice than to give birth to their babies in the back of ambulances. As for ice-covered Oregon, most heeded the warning and stayed indoors today, but the roads are expected to stay treacherous come Monday morning.
During Hurricane Sandy, wireless alerts were sent warning of flooding and high winds. In May, 36 minutes before a tornado entered the city of Moore, Oklahoma, the National Weather Service sent warnings to cell phones in the area. And then again, 16 minutes before the tornado touched down. Unlike cell phone calls, FEMA says wireless emergency alerts are not affected by network congestion because they use different technology.
At approximately 3 o'clock this afternoon,
all of a sudden my phone
just screeched at me.
Cell phone users all across Minnesota received a distinctive Amber Alert on their phones, informing them about the abduction of 8-month-old Carlos Orozco. Just under an hour after the Amber Alert was issued, Minneapolis police had a suspect in custody and were reuniting baby Carlos with his mother.
From the minute Shylin Neal disappeared from the Palladium parking lot in High Point, police and her family were on the hunt. Then, between 8:30 and 9 a.m., a breakthrough.
The car is in the parking lot, and there's a baby in the car.
UNCG student Mary Riscala got the Amber Alert on her phone. Then she recognized the white 2003 Suburban in this parking lot at Campus Crossing Apartments near Inglewood and Spring Garden in the UNCG area.
I didn't see the baby. I heard her crying, and I'm still freaked out and shaking, and my heart's beating.
Now Shylin's family is whole again, and her aunt Renee James is beyond happy.
For the parents of 5-year-old Amaya Dallas from Orange County, new technology is helping them breathe a sigh of relief tonight. Close to 30 minutes after she was reported missing via an Amber Alert, she was found. Wednesday was the first time that we've seen a wireless emergency alert issued for the state. It's also the first time since 2012 that we've had an Amber Alert.
As you can see, wireless emergency alerts have a lot of success stories, and the way you can check with your carrier to see if your phone is wireless emergency alert capable. We did bring some informational materials with us in the back of the table, so please feel free to pick one up before you leave.
Thanks, Susan. And next is Jim Tobias. Jim happens to be an old colleague. We worked together at Telcordia and Belcor, right? Found that out right before we started the panel.
That's right. Aging bell-shaped heads have to stick together. So I'm here to talk this morning about raising the floor and the global public inclusive infrastructure. If you don't mind, I'm going to abbreviate that to GPII from now on, just to save a little bit of time. And to introduce Raising the Floor briefly, we're an international nonprofit organization with representatives in about 20 countries and about 40 developers working on our key project right now, GPII. And these folks are in industry and academia and representing advocacy and consumer organizations as well. So what do we see going on in the world of technology? I think it's clear to all of us that technology's kind of taken over every sphere of modern life. And I'm using the expression here, ICT, for information and communication technology. So there's almost nothing you can do anymore in healthcare, in entertainment, in work, in commerce, that doesn't involve and require you to be pretty adept with an ICT interface. And it's not just an option anymore. It is the mainstream for the delivery of all of these human services and human participation modalities. So you really are out of luck if you're not basically online in one way or another. Now, online could be using your set-top box the way you want to, or it could be being a very skilled web surfer. We're going to leave that alone for the minute. But the other thing that we notice is that these technologies don't stay the same. They move very quickly. Everything gets upgraded. Everything gets changed. Your set-top box interface, that dreaded flashing red light when it's downloading new firmware, and that, those favorite channels are now going to appear in a different order, or I'm going to have to hit a different button to make them work. These are all occurring, and very often occurring without our choice, without really the kind of consumer autonomy that we would like to have. And we understand technology trends, but I think the impact that we're talking about today is on seniors and how these interfaces are not working for large numbers of people for many reasons, most of which can be solved, and I'm going to be talking about GPII as a potential solution. So what do we have as our key problem in technology? So these technologies keep moving, and they're more and more important for us to remain independent. And when I say we, I'm joining Everett here as a proud member of Senior America. We want to stay out there on our own. We want to do things. We want to stay engaged, keep doing the things that we like to do and need to do in our lives. And that challenge is a daily challenge. And although I'm a techie, I feel it too. So if I'm feeling that, future shock, I think that large numbers of seniors out there are feeling it, and they don't necessarily have the resources to stay on top of it. Those are the seniors who Chris referred to at the beginning, the tens of millions of people who are not on the internet, are not using broadband, are not connected today, and they're not likely to get connected tomorrow unless we make some changes. They're not going to be doing that on our own. We have clear numbers about this. A recent study from Pew indicated that 77% of seniors who are not using the internet now admitted that they would not get on the internet on their own. They will not take that step on their own. They want some kind of support, scaffolding, community-based services. And I'm really looking forward to some of the demos that we're going to be seeing later about how that's playing out on the ground and what we can do to build towards that, build more momentum. So what do we have as part of our requirement is to make those interfaces and the programs that provide those interfaces and present them to potential users much more aware of who the user is. Why is the user there? Not why do we think the user should be there, what they should be doing on the internet. What are they doing now? Are they listening to the radio for news? Okay, great. They like an audio channel for information. What can we provide them that's as good or better than they currently have? Understanding who that user is and the setting in which they operate rather than us from the tech world dictating how things have got to go. We know we want to be mainstream. We don't want to stigmatize people with special equipment, special services. We want everybody to be hooked up to the same information services, the same entertainment opportunities. And it's got to be flexible. It's got to be something that can address a user, understand the user, respond to the user's preferences. So this is what we're doing in building the GPII. So the idea is to take automatically the complicated and confusing interfaces that we all encounter every day in a strange new device, at that new retail point-of-sale device at the supermarket or the new ATM machine that has an interface that we haven't encountered before, and see if we can guide it to develop its own customized way of responding to the user's needs and preferences. So that's what GPII is about, and how do we do it? So there are basically three parts to GPII. The first one is user-facing, consumer-facing. And it says, tell us about yourself. What do you like to use now? If you like that set-top box interface and you're comfortable with it, why can't we use that as a baseline for developing what your browser is going to look like on the internet, what that retail terminal is going to look like, what that new cell phone right out of the box can look like for you? So it's a process of collecting and continually refining in dialogue with that user how they want their technologies to work for them. The second piece of the puzzle is developers out there in specialty areas, and by that I don't mean aimed only at people with disabilities or seniors or what have you, but people who are looking at use settings like health information technology or entertainment. How can we guide those developers to create customizable interfaces so that users can apply those preference profiles to how the interface works? And the third piece is the kind of big picture. The people who are developing new devices, the people who are the emergency planners, the people who are technology managers in large organizations, including the government. How can they be brought in to understand the need to match these user needs with the capabilities of the devices and the services that are going to need to be rolled out? And we want to apply this interface everywhere. Anytime you encounter something, it can look the way you want it to look so that it works best for you. So what does this mean in the emergency setting? Specifically, our whole model of development in GPII is to aim in two directions at the same time. We look to the emergency planning community to understand what are their needs. What do you, sometimes just terminology, what do you call it when you send a first responder, so that we can create the file protocols and the information that is it's understandable to your systems. And we also look to the users and say, how do you want things to work? When you press this button on your phone, what do you actually want it to do? When you dial 911, do you want us to call your daughter-in-law and tell her that you launched the 911 call, or do you not want to do that? So we want to customize that at the planning side so that all of that preference information about notification and conditionality, what happens, if it's a fire versus what happens if it's an earthquake, what happens if I'm at home versus what if I'm on the bus, all of those different situations that need to be thought of in advance. And then in the response context, what kind of information can we give first responders about language needs or information preferences or notification? Again, how do I get told news about this? I have something of an anxiety disorder. So for me to get a wireless emergency alert that is scary, it might not be as easy for me to be functional and to work my way through that alert. But if I can say in advance, hey, look, if there's a fire in my neighborhood, tell me this way. Put a map on there so that I see it's not my house on fire, but it's down the street, and then I'll be able to work with it. All of that kind of customization and personalization is very important for the successful adoption and use of these technologies. So that's what we're doing with GPII. If you have any questions, I know we're a little tight on time, but I'll be around later to answer questions or see how it makes sense to you and your organization. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim, and thanks to all of our panelists. I really appreciate you taking the time and coming and sharing your knowledge with us. Jim is right. We're out of time. So we're not going to have time for questions and answers. And we're just going to roll right into the next panel. So thanks again, and we'll be around. If we're here, we'll be happy to answer your questions.
Going to be combining the questions with the next panel. So if you have questions for the first, they'll still be here and I'll answer.
Good morning. As our panelists come up, I will introduce myself. My name is Robert Jaron. I'm with Qualcomm Incorporated. I'm Senior Director of Government Affairs. I also, in the past, have participated, or rather co-chaired, the FCC's private-public partnership of sorts, the mHealth Task Force, which happened a couple of years ago. And since then, I was named to be on the Consumer Advisory Committee, where I helped to co-chair the Healthcare Working Group for the FCC. So this morning, the first panel that we've got that I will be moderating, the Stay Healthy panel, we have Susan Haight, President of Foggy Bottom West End Village. We have Simone Myrie. Is that how you say it, Simone? Okay. With the Office of the National Coordinator, she's a health analyst, and Karen Ruban, who is an associate dean for the University of Virginia and also a very notable person in the telehealth space, past president of the American Telemedicine Association. So with that, I will defer to Susan. If you can come on up.
Am I to cue the video?
No. And just because one is becoming older or retiring from a lifelong career or even an encore career, it doesn't necessarily mean that life is over. And it doesn't necessarily diminish the importance of home, family, and community.
People want to continue being independent and want to continue living in their communities.
Community is kind of an interesting word, but it's really an extension of your family.
I looked around my own community one day and discovered that I knew nothing about the senior services available to my friends and neighbors. And when I looked a little deeper, the reason I knew nothing was because there was nothing.
The Village movement is coming at a time where it needs to be here because as increasing numbers of people are coming into their later years, the systems that
Got it? Okay. I'm on? All right. Good morning. I'm Susan Haight. I'm president of the Foggy Bottom West End Village. I'm going to talk a little bit about the village movement, which the video started to tell you, but I wanted to elaborate on that a bit. The village concept started in Boston with the Beacon Hill Village, and it was a group of neighbors that got together that are in 50 and older, and they decided they wanted to figure out a way that they could stay independent as long as possible. So the village movement is based on a membership and volunteer first model. Neighbors help neighbors do small tasks. It usually starts that way with things like going to the grocery store or having rides to medical appointments, which is a way that builds community and also saves costs for seniors. And from this comes a sense of community that's fostered and new friendships. And it's one of the best ways that seniors can remain healthy because they stay connected to each other, they watch out for each other, and the village is an important part of what's going on in America. For those of you that don't know about this, you really do need to learn about it because we're all going to get there someday. There are 45 villages in the United States now. There are 100 in development, and there are 35 in our region. The village was created in response to shifting demographics. The baby boomers, as we've heard early, make up the largest segment of our population. We make up 28% now, projected to be 71.5 million in 2030 and grow to 86.7 million in 2050. So as we start to retire, which was around 2011, we realized that there's going to be a huge juggernaut that's going to go through the system, and we need to have other ways to address the needs of the elderly. A lot of us also have taken care of older parents. So if you've been there and done that, you know how disruptive and how hard it can be when someone has to go into assisted living or a nursing home. So we need to think of ways that would make it different. We realize that more and more of our peers are going to suffer the economic, emotional, and physical stress of long-term care. And we're going to hate every minute of it. So we might as well get a community together that's going to figure out how to help ourselves. So when you think about our generation, and we're the baby boomers who went to Woodstock, which is 45 years anniversary this summer, and we think we invented sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So we have to think of a new way to think about aging in place. So the seniors today, although there are many that are infirmed and that have different issues, there are also some that are very independent, that are extremely healthy, and they really take the tradition of volunteering very seriously. They've done it their whole lives, so they're going to keep doing it as they age. So they're embracing the concept of living, of community living. A lot of us have families that are distant, particularly in the Washington area, because you've been in service, and so your kids are in Oregon or Portland, Maine, as my family is, and so you really try to figure out ways to stay connected with them, and that's where the internet comes in. You've heard a lot of the stats about how more and more seniors are using the internet and those that are not, but I just pulled up a few I thought were interesting that the internet users age 50 plus represents the web's largest consistency. That in 2012, baby boomers spent 27 hours on the internet, but millennials spent 25, so we outdistanced them. That 27.4 million people aged 50 and above are engaged in social networking. Adults spend an average of $7 billion online annually. So I think that's sort of an interesting thing. They use the net mainly for buying big purchases like automobiles, appliances, and also they do a lot of their health research on the net, and that can either be good or bad. So I think you just have to sort of think about that as we move forward. The Foggy Bottom West End Village is a neighborhood, nonprofit, volunteer membership organization based in Washington that provides services and social activities to help residents live independently. We believe that by establishing an organization like this, we are going to stave off isolation, delay having to enter assisted living, and keep members from draining their individual wealth. We also believe the sense of community fostered by shared activities helps health and welfare of our members. So our village is multi-generational. Each village has its own personality. I think it's important to know that. The one that's the most famous in the district is Capitol Hill. which is, I think 7, 8, maybe older than that. But they have homes. Where I live in the West End, it's high-end, high-rises apartments. And believe it or not, there are people who've lived there their whole life, and they don't know their neighbor because they've traveled. Like, they can go to Atlanta, have dinner with 10 people, but they know no one to go to the movies with. And so that's what the community sort of helps people with. So we've been working for 3 years. We just got our 501c3 May 7th. Yes, we're so excited about that. We have 119 members, 70 vetted volunteers. Our memberships are tiered, so there's a standard member that where you get services from a volunteer. There's also a social member. We have a website, a logo, an executive director. We opened our offices on K Street, so we're on the move. And we're just starting to roll out a capital campaign, which will start like in the next couple months. And I think this is important for families, like my family. I'm terrorizing them that they have to support the village and they have to donate to the village because they get me if they don't do it and they don't support this. And they're really like thinking about that. So villages advance their mission. The communication that villages use is there's a weekly director's note, which comes out from our executive director. And those that don't have internet, we mail it to them. We have a quarterly newsletter. Again, those that don't have internet, we mail to them. There are Google groups that share activities. The Village to Village Network, which was the video that didn't work, is something that is funded by Capital Impact Partners, but it's a way for sort of a trade organization for villages. In our village, there's only 8 members that are not connected. And we talk about this all the time at the board. The cost of paper, the cost of what do we do? But we feel obligated that we have to keep these people connected. So we find with them that there's a bit of isolation. We find they're prone to scams, and we're concerned about that. They need to have easy access, and they feel left out. And so one of the things we've done, my other pro bono life is working with the D.C. Public Libraries, and there's a part of the library called the Digital Commons, 11,000 square feet of everything digital. You can't even take a book into this part of the library. And they have classes for seniors, and they teach them what should they buy, what are they using, what should they buy, and they also teach them how to use their equipment after they get it, and make recommendations for people to stay connected. So it's very fun to watch someone, say, "Grandma, I didn't know you could Skype." And like, "Oh yeah, I've been doing this a long time. Where have you been?" So it's really kind of fun to see that, and that's a way to have classes and keep people connected. We have services like transportation, convenience services. We problem solve, and the 3 things that our village just started is a Village Friends, where we have a core group of people that know if a senior is on the cusp of needing care, and so they stay close to them. We have a quick response team, which is the next wave. So if someone is in trouble, we have experts that can come in and help them get to the services that they need. And we just started a support group for caregivers. I think sometimes that they are very much left out. Caregivers they just need relief, number one, but they need to talk to someone who's in the same circumstances. We do educational programs. We do cultural programs like the Kennedy Center. We do health and wellness lectures. We have a balance class, which is very well attended and a lot of fun. They teach you different exercises. And so in our group, we have people who brought in their walking shoes, and we have people who brought in their stiletto heels. So it's a very interesting kind of thing. We have the challenges of the village. I'm running out of time here, but the challenges of the village are money. You got to have money to be sustainable. Membership. Membership is about 80%, takes up 80% of our expenses. But so you need to have always a continuing membership drive and membership activities. The nature of the beast of the village is that people will move away, and or they will become infirmed, and or they will pass away. So you have to always have new members. The challenge on membership is I'm not ready yet. You can probably tell by my demeanor that I do not need senior services yet, but when I'm 80, I'm sure going to, and I'm going to make sure that I have something in my neighborhood that I can just, in a phone call, say, "I need help now," and they'll come. The challenges of running a village are numerous. We have an A-type board, which is the good news. The bad news is we have an A-type board. So everybody has a fabulous idea that they want to instrument, but they don't want to necessarily work on. So we work on that. We have to balance volunteers and members so that we always have 2 volunteers to each member as a ratio, so that if someone can't forward a service, that there'll be a backup on that. We worry about, we also have a program that's reduced fee memberships in our neighborhood, so there are, I think we have 20 now, and we were able to get a grant that would fund those so that we can keep our budget whole but still provide services and they can still become part of the village. Marketing the organization is one of the most difficult things, and so I was really glad to be here when Roger asked me to come and speak. You need to convince people that the village has value. It needs value. It's value to you as an individual. It's value to your community, and also that you are that it's value to donate to. You need to convince people that the village will enhance their lives, and it has. We have new friendships that we've never seen before. And for our generations, I think you need to convince them to be part of an organization that is reinventing itself, and each village is different, so you can do something different. And my last one is the very important one for me, is it's cool. I mean, people keep saying, you've heard it here, I'm one of the aging people, blah, blah, blah. It's cool. It's cool to be older and mature and to be in an organization that forwards your well-being. Let's see, my very last, I know, I'm looking at time. Okay, very last thing is, so in summary, the village provides a sense of community fostered by shared activities and reduces isolation, has a sense of security so you can always call someone in a pinch, opportunity to learn, opportunity to give back, delay having to enter assisted living, and hold off draining a member's personal wealth. So there's a village coming near you as sure as I'm standing here, so be prepared, think about it, and support them.
Simone?
Thanks, Robert. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Simone Myrie, and I am an analyst within the Office of Consumer eHealth, specifically on the Consumer eHealth team. And I'll introduce you from your left to right. Some of my other colleagues, it's Ellen Makar, she's a senior policy advisor. Erin Petter is also an analyst within the office. We have Ligia Ricciardi, who's the director of our office, and Adam Dole is our innovation fellow, but he'll be leaving us shortly. He's been a great asset. So that's our team. And so the focus of my presentation today is going to be on Blue Button and consumer engagement. And because of that, I wanted to open things up with this little cartoon. And I don't know if you can make out the text in the bubble there, but it's essentially a patient is on an exam table, and they're saying to the provider, the doctor, let me know if you want to know why I'm here. So within that, there are a lot of studies that are coming out to really highlight the point of how critical it is to engage patients in managing their care, but not only that, but that they're actually stepping up to the plate. The study by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation found that patients incur a cost of up to 21% higher than patients who are not engaged in their care, incur a cost of 21% higher than those who are highly engaged in their care. And in fact, 47% of patients have brought a friend or relative to a doctor's appointment so they could help them to ask questions and understand what the doctor is saying. And 3 in 5 patients have actually brought a list of their medications to their doctor's appointment. So Blue Button. Does anyone know what Blue Button is in the audience? Have you ever seen this symbol? Yay, there are a couple folks. So we heard from Chris earlier this morning that consumerism in general has moved into the direction where the expectation is that we can access just about all goods and services online. She also highlighted the statistics that 43% of seniors are actually have at least one or more social networking site. They're logged in as well. And this is an astounding statistic if you compare that to just in 2008, where only 1% of seniors had been engaged in social networking. So within that concept, because we're increasingly expecting to access information online, the same we want to apply to healthcare, and that's where Blue Button comes in. Blue Button is a symbol that lets patients know that they can access their health information online. It's also for caregivers, which we just hear is critical, and they're oftentimes left out of the conversation. It's also for patients and caregivers in general to access their health information electronically. Blue Button is not a single product. It is not a national database that we at ONC have with our stores any personal information of patients. And it's not about providers sharing information with each other. It's really about giving the patients access to their health information. So because this is a relatively new concept in terms of patients accessing their health information electronically, we realized that there wasn't necessarily a site specifically dedicated to helping them to get started with the process. And so with that in mind, our team worked on creating what's known as the Blue Button Connector site. And on this site, you can go there to really get started in figuring out where you might be able to access your health information online. So it's, as you know, healthcare and health information resides in various buckets. So you can get your health information from either a health insurer or a pharmacy or a lab or an immunization registry. So with all those buckets in mind, what our site segments them so you can select an option, and then it takes you to the door of where you can actually try to enroll either in a portal or something of that nature to get your health information. So one of our partners that's actually a part of this Blue Button movement is actually CMS. And they have a Blue Button portal online where beneficiaries can access up to 3 years of claims data. So this is just the front page. If you go to Medicare.gov, there's a Blue Button option there. We can access and download your claims information. And I think they're up to around 500,000 downloads. It could be more. That was the last statistic that I had. Additionally, the developer community is really responding to this niche market of more and more health information being available online. But right now, the health information, the way it's presented, it's a little bit clunky. So the developer community is responding to this need to really make it a little bit more useful and portable for consumers once they get their information. So the Blue Button is, as I mentioned, we at ONC do not own any patient's health information, nor do we have the ability to give access to health information. So this is where the Blue Button initiative comes in handy, where we really rely on the private sector and some of our federal partners, which are visible here, to enable the vision of Blue Button, which is relinquishing or sharing information with consumers electronically. Again, as I mentioned, there are various sources where you can cull your health information online. And so in doing so, we have a pledge community where various members within the private sector and our federal partners are pledging to actually move towards that step or the continuum of providing patients and caregivers with access to their health information. So these are some of the buckets of where you can access that information. So there are pharmacies, labs, health insurance companies, state registries, but also not just about providing patients with access to their health information, but truly helping to build the word or share the word and get the word out about this growing momentum of the importance of accessing your health information to help you to better manage your health and health care. And so in doing so, we have also engaged a lot of the consumer advocacy organizations. So you'll see a bucket here dedicated to that, who obviously have a much wider reach than we do and probably are more trustworthy for some consumers to hear from them rather than, let's say, the government about accessing your health information. So the next slide. Also to help many of our partners to amplify the word about access to your health information online, our team has done some focus group testing to help inform the creation of a couple PSAs and creative assets to help get the word out. And what we found from that focus group testing was there are 3 niche audiences for which this message about accessing your health information to manage your care, or more efficiently manage your care, resonated. One of which actually was the senior community, as you know, with the medication management and things of that nature. So you'll see here, which I will ask our lovely friends to play for us, one of those PSA videos.
You know your systolic and your diastolic blood pressure. You know your medications, your cholesterol levels, and your blood pressure readings, even your blood glucose readings. You are the one person who can remember and share every single detail when you need it with your doctors, family members, pharmacists, home health providers. What if you were unable to recall your medical information and the best treatment was delayed, waiting on that vital data only you had in your head? Now, with Blue Button, you can have reliable online access to your personal health information anytime you need it. Your health information may be available for you to access online, and you have every right to access it, check it, use it, and share it when you need to. Visit healthit.gov/bluebutton and take control of your health. With Blue Button, the power of your health information is in your hands.
Thank you. So again, as I mentioned earlier, we really are relying on a lot of our pledge members and those involved in the initiative in the private sector and our public sector partners to really help us to get the word out about Blue Button. And so launching this fall within the time window of September 15th through October 6th, the PSA that you just saw and several other communication assets will be disseminated in this Blue Button campaign to truly build some momentum to get the word out about the importance of accessing your health information so you can better manage your care. It was great to hear some of our FEMA friends highlight that September is National Preparedness Month, which is another reason why we chose within that time window to really get the word out about the importance of this piece in the larger sense of being prepared and taking care of your health. So with that, thank you so much.
Okay, and now we're going to hear from Karen Rubin.
My husband just became a Medicare beneficiary. I'm going to encourage him to go to Blue Button. So, well, it's a real privilege to be here and to share with you information about telemedicine. And I wonder if we can get the first slide up. Telemedicine is not really new. I want everyone to realize this has been around for a very long time, and I like to think the first phone call was actually a telemedicine counter when Alexander Graham Bell contacted Watson, his colleague. Watson, come here, I need you. And 1876, he'd spilled acid on himself. So I say we date back to the first phone call. And I guess, can we get the first slide up? Technical glitch. I have on my first slide the magazine cover of Radio News Magazine from 1923. Hugo Gernsback was the editor of Radio News Magazine, and he predicted contemporary telemedicine. Currently, there are telemedicine programs in every state of the United States, and I know we are the United States of America. I would say if you see one state, you've seen one state. Every state is somewhat different. But we've had a tremendous federal investment in telemedicine, and that has helped to drive telemedicine forward. So hopefully we'll be here shortly. The University of Virginia began its telemedicine program, and it's my privilege to talk about that. And I would say we are a proxy for most of the telemedicine programs across the country. Here we go. So that's the cover of Radio News Magazine, edited by Hugo Gernsback. He predicted contemporary telemedicine with a doctor seeing a child across a still as yet to be developed television set. So definitions of telehealth, the delivery of patient care and consultations over a distance using telecommunications technologies. Note I don't say what that distance is. It could be down the road. It could be next door. It could be across your state, across your nation, internationally, and as we know from our colleagues at NASA, even in free space. I have two colleagues who are shuttle astronauts who share they were completely wired when they were out in free space. And if we can do it in space, we can do it in Anacostia, we can do it in Charlottesville, we can do it anywhere in the United States. There are many different forms of telemedicine. Actually, let me go back to that. So it can be live interactive video conferencing using HD technologies. It can include store and forward, which is the asynchronous transfer of medical images and medical data, remote patient monitoring, virtual care, e-care, telephone care, and mobile health. What's important to know is telemedicine is not a specialty in and of itself. It's simply a tool to deliver that care. The need is great. The opportunity is great. And why telehealth? We are an aging population, including myself. By 2030, more than 71 million Americans will be over 65 years of age. We suffer from high rates of chronic illness. Nearly 50% of Americans report at least one chronic illness. Chronic disease is expensive, and there are serious workforce shortages addressing these chronic illnesses. So why do telehealth? What are the benefits? For patients, it's timely access to locally unavailable services. It improves chronic disease management. It reduces the burden and cost of transportation for care. For health professionals such as myself, we know there are huge workforce shortages, so it allows physicians and nurse practitioners to have access to consultative services from other providers, and it supports collaborative care delivery models. We work with nurse practitioners across Virginia to provide support in their communities. For hospital systems, it's important because it reduces readmissions to the hospital and allows improved triage of patients. Keeps patients local. More than 90% of patients who are seen in our telemedicine program do not have to leave their communities. And for communities, it increases broadband adoption. Our community hospitals are the major employers in many of these communities. If we can keep our patients in those communities, that's better for the community hospital and keeps people working. So there are many different models of telehealth. For us as an academic medical center, we connect to multiple sites across Virginia, and I'll show you in a map. But there's other models that work and that are very effective. There are aging-in-place models. The Veterans Health Administration, it's so nice to have Tom here to talk about what the VA is also doing. Telemedicine services companies have been launched across our country. And they offer specialty care, primary care adjuncts, remote patient monitoring. There are retail clinics. You can go into Walmart and or CVS and have access to a health professional who can connect via telemedicine, workplace clinics, and direct-to-consumer markets as well. Our Center for Telehealth really relates to our institutional mission at the University of Virginia, which is clinical care, teaching, research, and innovation. And we are a centralized, coordinated program where all the professionals within our institution are available and on call for the telemedicine program. We're also funded by HRSA, one of the arms of the federal government under Health and Human Services, to be the Mid-Atlantic Telehealth Resource Center, and we serve 8 states in order to help them to develop telemedicine programs. And we are especially grateful to the Federal Communications Commission because absent the rural healthcare support mechanism, we would never have been able to connect to our community partners across Virginia. And this is our network, the University of Virginia's network. Notice it covers pretty much the entire Commonwealth of Virginia from the eastern shore to far southwest Virginia, all supported by the Federal Communications Commission for our rural sites. We connect with hospital systems, we connect with emergency departments, we connect with rural clinics, urban clinics as well. We connect with the home, programs for the elderly such as our PACE programs. Really anyone who is a health professional can connect with us, and we have launched a program now to the home. So we've provided more than 40,000 patient encounters through our telemedicine program. We also provide international outreach, and this is coupled with our teleradiology program. So when a physician sits in front of a workstation, they can pull up the patient's radiographic images, the patient's electronic medical record, and use HD video conferencing to do the consultation as well. And one of our metrics that we track is miles of travel avoided. Really important for our patients and especially for our aging population. And we've saved Virginians more than 9 million miles of driving for access to healthcare services. Huge number. Oh, thanks to Matt. Thanks to the FCC, too. We provide services in more than 45 different specialties and subspecialties of healthcare, ranging from emergency services to chronic disease management. And the types of technologies we use, we have telemedicine to the desktop, fixed video teleconferencing, mobile carts, tablets, and even we can provide services using iPhones and Android devices. These are all HIPAA compliant and interoperable devices. So just a few examples: telestroke. Number 3 cause of death in the United States. High rates of mortality, morbidity, very expensive. And there is a clot-busting medication that's available. But if you don't have the right provider seeing the patient at the right time, you don't get that drug. We've launched a telestroke program, and in fact our FCC pilot program was built around our telestroke initiative at the University of Virginia. We connect to community hospitals, and from hospitals that never used TPA, the clot-busting medicine, now 25% of eligible patients who show up with a stroke can get this medication. So really important to connect doctors and patients using telecommunications technologies. A store and forward application that's really important for our aging population is teleophthalmology. You can take a digital camera and capture an image of the back of an eye and transmit it to an ophthalmologist who can decide which patient is at risk for blindness, especially with the high prevalence of diabetes. Every diabetic patient needs an annual eye exam. This image can be captured by a nurse and sent to a skilled ophthalmologist who can decide Who needs laser surgery to protect their vision? So another great tool, and that's an example of a digital image that's used. Remote patient monitoring, care in the home setting. So we've launched, and others have done the same, a remote patient monitoring program that allows for patients in their homes to have their blood pressure checked, their blood sugar checked, and we've done this for patients with heart failure, acute myocardial infarction, pneumonia, chronic lung disease, and we've demonstrated a tremendous, more than 50% reduction in readmission to the hospital. Another great tool of telehealth to the home. We know that there are not still a lot of older adults who are connected, and we hope to see more of that happening over time. We know that aging in place is a complex process. It's not just about delivering a piece of technology. It's important that's integrated into your medical home. You just don't want to be connecting to anyone. And so the Federation of State Medical Boards is taking a position on this. Certainly CMS has been very engaged. A lot of federal agencies have been involved. Our states have involved. It's really important that this be coordinated. There's improvements in Medicare that can happen. Sadly, in 2013, Medicare only reimbursed $12 million in telemedicine encounters, and that's because some of the regulations are challenging. But we have great leadership at Medicare who are willing to step outside the box and try to improve that for all of our citizens. Just thought you might be interested to know that the Grand Canyon was considered an urban area under Medicare. So we have a lot of work to be done to try to change some of these rules. But I would suggest, and I really want to give a huge shout out to the FCC, which Chapter 10 of the National Broadband Plan actually really set the stage for great improvements in health care. So the FCC has taken a great role in trying to improve health care. The states can do the same. The Medicaid programs, almost 45 Medicaid programs pay for telemedicine services. Really important as we expand Medicaid, more access for our patients. So the future of telehealth is very bright. I want to thank our commissioners because they have taken huge steps to advance telemedicine with the Rural Healthcare Support Mechanism and the pilot program, the Healthcare Connect Fund, and our federal agencies under HHS, Marilyn Tavener, who directs CMS, and Mary Wakefield, who heads HRSA, and our national coordinator, Karen DeSalvo. Great steps to integrate healthcare, to make it safe, sustainable, part of your medical home, not fractionated, to be integrated in every way, to use technology to improve access to care, improve quality care, and even maybe improve population health as well. So thanks a lot for the opportunity to speak today, and thanks to the FCC.
All right, at this time we're supposed to do questions, but unfortunately we're really out of time and running very late. So I'm going to take moderator's prerogative just to make a couple of notations. There's no way that you were at Woodstock, and congratulations on your 501c3. Would have loved to have heard more about Blue Button Plus and about the developer community, because I think that's where a lot of innovation is going on with Blue Button. So maybe you can talk about that with some of the folks out there. And Karen, all that stuff is really at the core and the heart of where I'm at. I would love to hear your thoughts about the CMS definition of telehealth compared to the one that you presented. Yay for the FCC, not only Chapter 10 of the National Broadband Plan, their involvement with FDASIA, obviously the FCC's mHealth Task Force, creating the working group. The task force itself actually presented the FCC with about 24 recommendations from the private sector that included academics, other stakeholders, patient groups, etc. They acted on 90% of them. The FCC, the workhorse of healthcare, the unknown workhorse of healthcare. So with that, thank you for this panel, and I think we're going to bring the other panel up now. Is that correct? So, thanks.
While we're waiting for the next panel, I see Jeff is back. On my work BlackBerry, Jeff, I'm getting a refund from IRS. I won the lottery in the United Kingdom, and some Russian woman thinks I'm really cute. I'm kind of old, but let's say I was 20 years older. I'd probably follow up with the Russian lady. Maybe I might now, but the IRS refund, if I look at the address it came in, it was the Czech Republic. So that was the clue for me. But I'm just wondering if maybe at the end you can tell us, maybe give us some tips. If you're an older person, I wonder if they get caught in a lot of scams like that. No, as people get older and they get these and they're not used to the internet, like, or this, what happens? And we have spam control here. But the Russian woman, she was kind of cute.
Thank you, Roger. Okay, so now I'd like to introduce the next panel. We have Tom Camber from OATS, Older Adults Technology Services, Thomas Klobuchar, Dr. Thomas Klobuchar, and Dr. Ruban, I never said Dr. Ruban, from the VA, and Sheila Dugan from Everyone On. With that, let's start off with Tom Camber.
Thank you, Robert. We have the slides coming up. So I'm Tom Camber from Older Adults Technology Services here in New York, and I'm here to talk a little bit today about training and remote access to desktops for older adults. We're sort of on the practitioner side. Started out about 10 years ago doing technology training in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn, New York City, and that has grown into first a citywide program and now one where we're doing programs. We have a project here in Washington, D.C., and one in South Dakota, so it's been kind of a developing model. And I want to talk a little bit about the core topic is this emerging technology about remote desktop applications and remote desktop coaching for people. But I want to put it in a little bit of context because all these new technologies that come along are always very exciting, but we have to remember why we're using them and how they fit into everything else that exists. So I'm going to take a few moments. If we can get the next slide. Is there a clicker up here? There it is. Got it. Okay, I'm going to click my own slides. There we go. First, 2 minutes on OATS, just for those of you who haven't seen us before. We're based in New York City. We run the largest municipal technology program there. It's 24 different locations. If any of you ever come to New York, we would very much encourage you to come visit the Senior Planet Exploration Center, which is, as far as we know, it's the only standalone community technology center for senior citizens in the country. Everything is free. We have 10,000 visitors a year, and we partner quite intensively with groups like AARP and other folks that are here in the room. Tony Sarmiento's here in the back, and a bunch of the folks from the telecommunications sector as well. The few photographs of the center itself. Our feeling is that community technology programs for seniors need to be multifaceted. We need to be a little bit broader than just a computer technology room somewhere in a basement where people come take classes, but we need to integrate those services and programs more into helping particularly the older adult population unleash their creativity and potential as they age. The thing that really animates us at OATS and a lot of our partners is this notion that people hit the age of 60 or 70 and we have so much potential, and our society hasn't really reformed itself yet to capture that and to encourage people to both take advantage of and also support older adults in contributing both in the workforce and in their communities and their families. So our center is really designed to have that kind of broad-based applications. People come in with digital cameras. They come in and start micro-entrepreneurship programs. They come in and do programs on immigration with their families, trying to get people their status changed and things like that. It's much more than just teaching people how to click a mouse. Online, we have seniorplanet.org, which is our digital site. We also come at this because we're a nonprofit based in New York. We try to be a little bit edgy. We've got a lot of people wearing leather jackets around the office. So seniorplanet.org is a little bit more edgy, and the framework is called Aging with Attitude. And if you go to the site and read all the articles on seniors with tattoos and skydiving and stuff like that, you'll see why. But we also talk about a lot of serious topics around using technology to access health, and some of the telemedicine things that we were hearing before from our friends in Virginia just are incredibly inspirational to me. And in terms of the results, we've been serving about 12,000 people a year in New York, teaching about 3,000 classes for free. And a lot of support from the federal government, particularly the Department of Commerce, the NTIA. We have folks from there today. So they've been really big partners in the FCC in helping us get the word out. I want to talk a little bit about training here, because the key piece of this is, as older adults are coming in, there's always a training component. It shouldn't be the only thing, but it's always a large portion of what people are asking for. So we are just completed a study, which is not even released yet. You're getting the first piece of this. It's with New York Law School, and John Horrigan is co-authoring it with me. We surveyed 1,200 senior citizens by phone around the country and asked them where they wanted to get training. And you see the results. They're quite diverse. About half of the people say they want to learn at home, but they're also interested in training elsewhere. You've got about a third at community centers, a third in libraries, 28% want an online course, and 27% actually want to go to the local electronics store, the Verizon and the Apple store, and AT&T and get training right there from people that are selling devices. So the answer that we got from people is they want a diversity of locations to get access, but I also want to flag that 50% said they want some form of training at home, and it's often coaching with a friend or relative. And I'll say that as you ask people about their experiences doing that, it can be quite challenging to teach your mom or dad because of all the cross-cutting family and personal issues that go into that. I will say, however, training is incredibly critical. One of the things that we learned from the study is that of the 36% that we interviewed that said they had some form of training, look at the differences here in terms of whether the internet helped them a lot to stay in touch with friends and family or access health or medical information, save money on products, or access government services. There's very significant differences and advantages to people who receive training. So just the first line I'll call out, 55% said that the internet helped them a lot to stay in touch with friends and family. Those who were untrained, only 36% said the internet helped them a lot. So that's a big gap in what people are getting out of the internet when they've got training or don't. This is just a quick slide. It's kind of a little hard to see from here, but our general point here is that different kinds of training have different kinds of assets for people, and I'll talk about this at the end again. And I want to go right to the remote desktop models here. You can now go online. This has been something that's been around for quite a while, but often what people are struggling with is, my father lives in Asbury Park, New Jersey, and he often calls me for assistance on his computer. And of course, I can't drive the 2 hours down there from New York City to help him, and I wish I could help him by taking over his desktop. For years, we've worked with different models of these remote desktop applications that enable you to do that. And years ago, Oates worked with a project with Verizon, supporting us working with Maimonides Medical Center in New York, where we taught 24 geriatric patients to communicate with their doctors. We couldn't get out to the people's homes 20 times to teach them all the material, so we did 10 home visits and 10 visits remotely where we would call them on the phone, take over their desktop using GoToMeeting at the time, and basically be able to see what was on their desktop. So if you're a senior out there and you want help, you may be surprised to know and pleased to know that your son or daughter or volunteer coach from wherever they may be can actually take over your PC computer or Mac and see what you're seeing while they talk to you on the phone, so they can talk you through some of the changes and help that you need. And that's a wonderful application. One of the nice things, and audio, typically the easiest way to do it is through a phone call, but some of these systems also do allow you to share audio. And you can do it for tech support. Maybe mom or dad can't quite figure out how to get that attachment downloaded that you've sent them. Or you can do it for an actual training, which is what we did. We structured it into a training because by eliminating half of the home visits that we would have had to pay a trainer to go to, we were able to make that program more affordable. If you make a program more affordable, it's more sustainable. And that becomes one of the linchpins to growing these programs nationwide. So these home access programs are really important now. I want to show one more slide here. There are a lot of different products and services out there. LogMeIn is the one that I use on my computer the most, but that's more of a business-oriented program. The one that I want to flag, though, is the Google Remote Desktop. That's becoming a sort of very easy-to-use, customer-centric, broad-based application that a lot of people have now been using for quite a while. We've tested it and found that it's a pretty good platform for people. It takes about 10 minutes for a person with average technology capability to set that up, and you can set it up on your own computer, and then it also needs to be set up on the computer that you're remotely connecting to. So my dad in New Jersey would have to download it, and I would download it. That downloading is taking it off the internet and installing it on the computer. It really is something that most people with basic computer skills can do fairly easily. And it enables you to get a little, like a password key that my dad would send to me and say, here's the password key. I would load that onto my computer, and it would enter it. And in about 2 minutes, I can take over his machine and see what he's seeing on his computer, and I can work the mouse remotely there. So I'm just showing a few screens here. These are very basic little screens that you use when you're logging in. It asks you for these passcodes. And you'll see in the backdrop of this slide that I actually have an image of, a desktop, because there's not a lot to show in terms of the screenshots here, because because what I'm showing is the other person's computer. But it's a wonderful opportunity for people that are remotely connecting and trying to help people across space. I think it's a nice complement to what we were talking about with the telemedicine applications and some of the distance learning programs that we've got here. And then finally, I just want to take my last minute and refocus us on the broader picture a little bit here, because when you are working with older adults, remember to take it seriously, make sure they have high quality training. Don't just send somebody who hasn't really thought about this before to go do it. Make sure that you're focusing on their needs and what's relevant to their own learning style and content. Make sure that people get individualized attention, which is why these remote applications are so great, especially for people in rural areas, by the way, which is a really strongly growing area of interest across the country right now on this topic. Relaxing people's environment so they don't feel stressed or anxious about, is there a test at the end of this, or am I learning everything? It's okay to tell mom or dad, hey, you might not get this on the first try, so let's spend a half an hour now, and we might not even solve it today, but we'll come back in a couple of days and try it again. So making it comfortable, and then making sure they have up-to-date technology so the technological quality of what they're learning is high quality for them. So all of these sort of tips that I would suggest really provide a good framework for using these remote desktop applications. And we hope to hear from anybody out there that's trying them, because this is really the first few years that they're getting a lot of uptake out in the community and the different sites. So I've got my contact information on the slides there. We'd be glad to hear from anybody who's been using these. And if you come to New York, visit our center and check out the seniorplanet.org site and comment as well. Thanks a lot.
Dr. Klobuchar?
Hi, I'm Tom Klobuchar from the Department of Veterans Affairs, and I'd like to thank you for asking me here to speak with you today. And I'd also like to thank you for all that you're already doing for veterans. Whether you're a federal partner, a non-governmental organization, private industry, the odds are you're already doing something to help our veterans get access to the care and services that they've earned. And so I'd like to thank you for that, because, there's 22 million veterans out there, all across the United States in rural and urban areas. And so the odds are there's one living right next door to you. So if we could, I guess, can we get that up there? So I was going to talk a lot about rural telehealth and broadband, but fortunately, Dr. Rubin from the University of Virginia gave you a good overview of telehealth, so I'm going to be able to skip over some of that stuff. This is just a mission statement for the Department of Veterans Affairs. The President Lincoln coined this, and he said that the mission of our agency, our department, is to care for him who shall have borne the battle for his widow and his orphan. And it's a mission that we take very seriously. This is just a little bit about the breadth of the VA. We have 151 medical centers, 985 outpatient clinics, 135 community living centers, which are kind of a nursing home model, readjustment counseling centers, and domiciliary resident rehab treatment programs. So we're a pretty far-reaching organization. I've just been with the VA a short time, and I was a veteran myself. Well, I still am, a veteran myself, and I had no idea of the reach of this organization until I actually became part of it. It's a pretty extraordinary and dedicated workforce. The next slide, I'm gonna just pass that one by. It talks a little bit about eligibility, what veterans are eligible and which ones are not for VA healthcare. I know before I came in, I didn't realize that there are some who may not be eligible, and we have certain income ceilings and so on and so forth to ensure that veterans get the care that they deserve and they've earned. And you're free to review that at your leisure. But let's talk a little bit about what our workforce, or what our veterans look like across the country. We've got some Census Bureau definitions here of urban and rural. Rural is everything that's not urban and not highly rural, which is a really convenient definition. And highly rural places are those that have 7 or fewer people per square mile. Right now, today, we have 8.9 million enrolled veterans in the VA. That's out of the 22 million nationwide. That means there are roughly, 13 million that haven't enrolled in the VA for one reason or another. Overall, about 36% of our population lives in rural areas. So we are really concerned about how to get care to those veterans. And again, disproportionately, there's only about 19% of this country that live in rural areas, but about 30% or more of our Operation Iraqi Freedom and our Afghanistan and Iraqi veterans actually go back home to rural areas in this country. So we have a rural issue in this country. This compares what our patient population looks like in the VA versus the general population. And you see the green, blue, and purple describes what the rural, urban, and highly rural populations among our enrollees looks like. And the red is the general population. And you'll notice that our population curve has this peak at 65 plus. At 65 plus, because we've got, our population curve looks like that because the World War II veterans who are now aging, the youngest of those is in their 80s, and we have a series of Korean era, Vietnam era veterans that are aging into this 65 plus category, and then we have kind of a flat spot where all the Cold War veterans like myself are, and then this bump for the OIF veterans from Afghanistan and Iraq. So we've got an aging population with a significant number of veterans who are over the age of 65. Some of their health care issues include these that are disproportionately rural. It's important that we can get them care for these issues. I'm not going to talk about our technology because I think Dr. Rubin did a really good job of describing what telehealth looks like. But I do want to show you these two videos that shows our application of telehealth and getting care to older veterans in rural areas. So can we hit that video?
VA's Office of Rural Health is developing innovative model programs to help rural veterans. In Florida, new technology allows a veteran to rehab from the comfort of his own home. In Utah, a woman receives support to help her care for her veteran husband. And in Pennsylvania, veterans with mental illness are given a new lease on life. The Office of Rural Health is reaching out to improve the quality and availability of care for rural veterans. Veteran Wilbert Gavin lives in rural North Florida, 65 miles from the nearest VA clinic.
I was feeling bad. I went to the hospital and they gave me some medicine. They're not sure of what went wrong, but it damaged my sciatic nerve. I couldn't walk.
Wilbert's disability forced him to quit his job. He turned to ORH for help and was paired with VA physical therapist Tony Chiara.
The Rural Veterans Tele-Rehab Initiative is the first program nationwide that goes from the clinic to the patient's home. Every patient has to be seen initially for a face-to-face evaluation. So then after that, we progress the exercises to other ones that we then can do via the Tandberg. And a Tandberg is a televideo unit. He just has to push the first button, and that automatically connects into the televideo unit in my room. We can do strengthening. We can do range of motion exercises. We can do balance exercises. So we can pretty much treat any type of patient with a neurological or neuromuscular disability.
This is a real convenience for a disabled person because I don't have to drive to Lake City. For me to drive to Lake City and back, that's 130 miles. So it is a great help to me.
Dr. Paul Hoffman heads the telehealth effort at the VA hospital in Gainesville. He also oversees the second component to this model program, using the televideo unit and a trained assistant to conduct follow-up neurological exams at outpatient clinics.
I particularly find it very useful because I do have the ability to focus my full attention on the patient for that period of time. That's the purpose of these demonstration programs that we do. Not only do we want to show that it can work in North Florida and South Georgia, but we want to show that it can, as a vehicle, it could be used all over the country.
My sincere hope is it grows substantially, and I think it will, because this is really going to help a lot of veterans be able to receive the therapy that they need.
Yeah, I've been real happy with her working with me with the Tandberg. If somebody had told me this could have happened, I wouldn't have believed it unless I've seen it myself, and now I've experienced it, so I am happy.
Veteran Gary Robinson is a lifelong rancher in rural Utah.
Oh, it's just a nice place, open country.
But the injuries Gary suffered in Vietnam have led to over 25 corrective surgeries. His physical disabilities, along with growing cognitive impairments, also make life difficult for Debbie, his wife and caregiver.
This past year, Gary has fallen many, many times. My work is 25 miles away, so about every 90 minutes I'll give Gary a phone call. Is Gary fallen? Where is he at? Has he made it upright all day long, or has he not? Not only do I take care of my life, I have to take care of his, or it doesn't happen.
Caregivers like Debbie often suffer from stress and depression. In response, the Office of Rural Health in Utah has developed a model program using distance technology to deliver assistance directly to family caregivers.
Each week I watched a video of approximately 5 minutes, and then I would access the internet, and then it would review the things I had seen, and then it would ask me questions about what was my stress level.
For caregivers without a computer, ORH provides an all-in-one internet device.
We just send that to them pre-programmed. They plug it into their wall. They can just use a touch screen on that, and all of that information is transmitted back to me via the phone line.
The very last question of each internet section was, would you like your support person to contact you? If it had been a rough week, I clicked the yes button, and Marin would call me each week.
The beauty of this project and the beauty of this program is that information comes back to me. I can stay here locally, here in an urban area, and I can read their responses. I can monitor my clients' status and how they're doing.
Marin became a friend.
Yeah, it's Marin. How are you doing?
And she could hear what I needed.
She grew in her ability to take care of herself and then in turn take care of Gary. By providing support to the caregiver, we're really supporting the veteran. And what we're also doing is hopefully reducing hospitalizations and also reducing the need for institutionalization or the need for nursing home placement.
I have to take care of me before I can take care of him. If I'm not a healthy person, I can't do the best for him.
And we can cut the video there, please. I'd like to thank you again. I've got some other stuff I wanted to talk about, but the point is that, these applications of telehealth for caregivers, but also for delivering health care into veterans' homes, are now flourishing and moving VA-wide. But there's one thing you got to have in your home in order to be able to do that, and that's broadband access. And so we really applaud our partners, our federal partners' efforts, and the efforts in private industry to make broadband available across the country to those 566,000 rural veterans who currently don't have access to broadband in their communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Sheila?
Hello, my name is Sheila Dugan. I work for Everyone On. We're a nonprofit organization that's devoted to closing the digital divide and getting the millions of Americans who aren't connected online. If you could start the slides, please. So what I'm going to do today is talk to you a little bit about our organization and how to find affordable internet options. As I said, we're really devoted to getting the millions of Americans who aren't online. And we've discovered through research that some of the barriers of people, the reason why they're not online is because service. Sometimes it's difficult to pay that $40 or $50 a month if you're on a fixed income or if you're struggling to pay for medication or food. So we really wanted to directly address the cost barrier by working with a lot of internet service providers to provide affordable internet service options. Another thing is relevancy. A lot of people, your experience and exposure to a lot of online resources, they seem kind of petty, and you're like, I don't see the need to get on. I've lived for a long time without being online. Or, if I can't afford service, how is this even relevant for me to begin with? And I think that's becoming less of a reason, as we've had many panelists today that shared a lot of wonderful online resources. And, each day we're finding more reasons for more Americans to get online. Finally, digital literacy is one of the barriers. If you feel uncomfortable using a computer, or you are a little unsure about the language used, what's a URL, what I'm clicking, what's a mouse, sometimes that can be a little intimidating. So what we do is we work with a lot of nonprofits across the United States to identify where people can learn how to use a computer and learn how to use the internet and navigate online. So those are our three sort of core services: low-cost internet service, an awareness campaign that shows people the relevancy of being online and the resources available, as well as really pushing the digital literacy training. We know it's not just enough to give a person a connection and computer. People need to learn how to use it, and we want to encourage meaningful use of broadband-enabled technologies. So to find out where your closest digital literacy course is, you can simply go on our website, or you can call the number 855 everyone on, EVRY1 on, and you enter your zip code, and we can give you the closest digital literacy courses in your community. Often they're libraries, sometimes they're nonprofit organizations, and you can find out where the courses are available, if they're public Wi-Fi available, or public computers for use. You can also go to our website, enter your zip code, and we'll show you the affordable internet service options in your area. I have a couple of screenshots. Our website's changing a little bit, but the steps will remain the same. You just simply enter your zip code. And then we'll ask you a couple of quick questions about, National School Lunch Program eligibility. There are options available if you do not have children in the home who qualify for National School Lunch Program, but we understand that a lot of older Americans are caregivers for K through 12 students, so we always ask that question, and there are internet service programs targeted at that particular population. And once you answer that question, we'll give you a sense of all the offers in your area. We work with a variety of companies, from Cox to Comcast to wireless carriers like Freedom Pop and Mobile Beacon and Mobile Citizen. We also give you information about the refurbished and low-cost computers and tablets that you can buy as well. This is also, available on our website, but you can also call the number that I gave you earlier if you want access to this information as well. I know everyone's like, what does affordable internet access look like? Affordable, you use that term, and it's different for different people. But I would like to tell you about one of our newest partnerships with two companies, Mobile Beacon and Mobile Citizen. They're wireless carriers, and what they do is offer an unlimited 4G plan for $10 a month. You can also buy a modem, a hotspot, or a USB modem that you can sort of plug into your computer for around $39, $40 plus shipping, and those are the only costs that you have to pay, the upfront cost for the modem if you don't have one, as well as the $10 a month, which a lot of people find to be more affordable. And I know the first question you're asking is this high quality service? Yes, it is. When you're in coverage, I actually have used it at home. Sometimes in the office, when our connection's a little sluggish, we fight over the little USB hotspot as well. In terms of eligibility, what we've really tried to do is target low-income Americans. So if you live in a zip code where your annual median income is lower than $35,000, you're eligible for these offers. Now we understand that most eligibility standards aren't perfect, and there are a lot of people who fall through the cracks. So what we've tried to do is work with a variety of enrollment partners, some that I want to identify after this meeting, to develop plans that we pre-qualify all of their constituents. We know, especially in areas like D.C., your median income in your community may be a little high, but there are still some people who still have a need for affordable internet service. So we work with nonprofits across the country to pre-qualify everyone in their organization so they can have access to the service as well when they're in coverage. And that's what our new partnership with Mobile Beacon and Mobile Citizen allowed us to do. I really encourage you to reach out to us. I put some flyers on the table over there. You can go to our website, call us, please contact me, explore the different options for maybe yourself or as well as the people that you serve. That's all I have for you today.
Okay, so we are almost at time. So I'm going to use moderator's prerogative again and say a couple thoughts. So Tom, love the idea of the Exploration Center. I think that's just wonderful. How many folks participate usually in that?
10,000 visits.
10,000 visits.
1,600 unique individuals last year.
Great. And also, thanks for showing us Google Remote Desktop. I think that those kinds of tools that exist that people don't know are just fascinating. And Dr. Klobuchar, thanks for the definitions of rural, urban, and highly rural. It's interesting because CMS has their own definitions of, or they refer to other definitions, and I'm always fascinated by the fact that we have problems with people accessing care, whether they're in rural, suburban, or urban areas. And when we finally get over that, maybe we'll really start taking care of people in this country. Also, how many Tandbergs are there? How many people actually access that?
Actually, the Department of Veterans Affairs has 4,000 video endpoints currently in our facilities, and we're looking to expand our telemedicine, video telemedicine in the home to 15,000 veterans by the end of this year. But currently, for home telemonitoring, which uses older technology, we have between 70 and 80,000 veterans on home telemonitoring at any given time.
That's fantastic. Great. That answered the other question. All right, and Sheila, I presume that these digital literacy courses are pretty much all over the country?
Yes, they're a variety of all across the country. We like to identify the free courses, and they're given from libraries to nonprofits and a variety of community-based organizations.
Great, and I was 4G for $10 a month. That's fantastic. That's great. Go. Definitely go. All right. With that, I'd like to close up now and again thank the FCC. In particular, thank Matt Quinn, the Director of Healthcare Initiatives of the FCC. All of those great things that we were mentioning earlier that the FCC is doing, Matt is intimately involved in those and has been shepherding them for the past year. Also, thank you to Roger. Thank you to Kyla. Thank you to Anthony. I'm sorry I don't know your name, but I want to thank you as well, and so the other person in the back of the room. So with that, I defer to Roger.
Thank you. I'm sorry it's so cold in here, but we've had problems with people falling asleep, and you won't. But anyway, thank you all so much. This is probably one of the best set of panels we've had with experts. You're all great speakers. And like Chris mentioned in the beginning, we're going to be posting this online, making DVDs or whatever they're called these days available, and using our network and hopefully your networks to get this out to senior centers to show this, churches, community groups, where the chairman of the FCC, our new chairman, is dedicated to getting seniors online. This is a big priority, and thank you all for helping us. Thank you all for coming, and happy Thursday. Welcome.